Here we are with the race recap, the 100 kilometer race recap. And I actually published an article earlier today, if you're watching this video today, but just a few hours back. And yeah, I thought it was an excellent moment. 1 week has passed now. And so it's the right time for me to start to distill the lessons, try to make sure that I figure out what happened, what can I improve, what worked, and trying to distill really the lessons. And so, as you can see here from the title, I actually ran 100 kilometer in hyperglycemia, which was definitely not ideal. And believe me, it was running was the easy part on that day. Uh, the race and the mental game was really tough because of the hyperglycemia. Everything was just unnecessarily harder, and I still made it. And so I think that the win here was for me for sure to find a way to balance the stress imposed on my body by the hyperglycemia and balance that out with the running intensity, the overall intensity of moving for 100 kilometers through the night, through the sleep deprivation and everything else. And so yeah, I wrote a little bit of an article here for everyone because I think it's worth acknowledging that, of course, trying to prove and to commit to this type of events, to do this type of things with type 1 diabetes is not an excuse to just, get away with the bad blood sugars and just saying, hey, I did it, look at me. That's not the point. The point for me was and always will be completing these races, doing these races with perfect blood sugars. Of course, because I'm doing this for my health at the end of the day, and everyone should. So there is no point in getting a medal if then you're paying a massive toll in terms of with your health in general. And so my health took a beating on that day, but I was still extremely proud. So in this article, and I will let you read it on your own, but I wanted to pause on a couple of points and reflect on a couple of moments really of the day, because I did put a lot of planning into this race. And if you read this other article, you know that I had 3 marathons in the month leading up to this race, preparing for this. So I knew what I was doing. I had mapped out my dosing strategy, my insulin strategy, my carb intake, the timing of everything. So I knew, I was confident that it would play out in my favor. But days like this are just a massive test, and unexpected things happen, and we need to be able to learn the lessons when they come. So what happened? I've actually broken down this article in the key moments of the day. So wake up to race start, then the race start until the marathon mark, and then reaching the half, so 50k mark, and then running through the night, and then the 60k to 100k, and then the aftermath. So this is the structure of the article. You can go step by step with me through the day. In terms of the waking up and preparing for the race really started at 3 p.m. So there was a ton of time to get anxious, to get to start making stories in your head, and to question everything in your plan and what you're about to do. So the morning was really can be a tricky moment in these cases. What I wanted to avoid for sure was to hop on a roller coaster with my blood sugars. So maybe, since you're a little bit stressed out, the adrenaline is there, maybe you eat a little bit too fast, you don't really wait for the pre-bolus to kick in, and so you get a spike, and then you're tempted to chase it with extra insulin, and then you go low, and then you have a rebound high, and then all of a sudden everything is more difficult. And so my only goal for the moment until 3 p.m. was to keep my blood sugar as smooth as possible, and I did it. I managed to do that, and I didn't put a picture here, but I'm going to add it. But my blood sugar line was incredibly stable until the start of the race. So I dosed for 50 carbs at breakfast, and I only ate 30. The reason for that is what I refer to the ghost carbs strategy. So you, by only eating a portion of the carbs that you dose for, you are actually leaving the rest, the remainder, in this case 20 carbs, as ghost carbs. And by doing that, I knew that the adrenaline of the day would probably cause a spike in itself, and so by staying a little bit lower on the carbs themselves, I was putting myself in a better condition, a better spot in terms of managing potential hyperglycemias, which I didn't have, but I think this was a good reason why that happened. And for the rest, I just stay really calm. I stay hydrated because it was 34 degrees on the day when we started, and so hydration was paramount. And by the time I reached the starting line around 2:30 p.m., my blood sugar were still stable, floating between 130, 140. There was a ton of walking in the meantime, collecting the race packs and the drop-off bags and everything. This was all taking place in Florence, so a lot of going from A to B by foot. I think by the time I started running, I already walked 50k steps, so crazy. And also my last bolus, my last rapid insulin, was 3 hours before the start. That was by intention. I had calculated that. I knew that would be enough to allow me to eat something small before the start, and then have some residual insulin to eat glucose during the race itself. So the race started at 3. 5 minutes before the gun went off, I ate two rice cakes. And what happened after that was kind of crazy, because there started the problems. So 2:55 p.m., still around 130 blood sugars, and then a couple minutes into the race, and actually a couple minutes even before the race, as I was just waiting for in the crowd, I had another glance, and my CGM was pointing to 240 with double zeros up. And that made no sense, because I literally had less carbohydrates than I would possibly get on a normal day. I was about to run 100k. I had walked a ton during the morning. I was hydrated. I was not really stressed. I had insulin on board, although it was residual, but still there was insulin. So I didn't know. I thought it was just like a glitch, and so I remain positive that it would just work out, and I started running. And the first 50k were all uphill, so this was the toughest part of the race for sure. It was hot, sunny, and all uphill, so a lot of energy to burn for sure, and a considerable amount of fatigue, and I had planned to eat 60 grams of carbs per hour, but I soon realized that would just not be possible, because not only my blood sugars skyrocketed out of kind of out of the blue. And by the way, I didn't even lower my basal insulin the day before. It was just the same. So not only did they skyrocket it, but they remained there despite me not eating nearly enough glucose to, possibly justify such a spike. So they just kept climbing. My stomach also flipped, so I really could not eat anyway. And that made moving not enjoyable. Running was not enjoyable because my stomach was kind of cramping. And on top of that, so I was frustrated because my stomach was cramping, so I could not really run well or walk well for that reason. But also my blood sugars were just throwing me a massive curveball that I did not understand, and that was the most frustrating part of all because, as I was doing 10K and then 10K and then reaching the 30K mark and then the 40K mark, I was like, oh my God, I still have like 10 hours of racing in front of me, 60K in front of me, 70K in front of me, and this is what's happening? Is that for real? I just could not believe it, and I was so frustrated. Maintaining a positive attitude here was incredibly difficult, but I kind of managed to do so. I accepted that I was in a situation that was not planned for, not favorable, not preferable. It was nothing but pure suck. But I decided to stay with it to the best of my abilities. All I could do really was drink water with a lot of salt, electrolytes. So I had my sodium tabs with me. Because otherwise, without if you do not replace the sodium, especially drinking all that water, that's a massive that can be a massive problem in terms of cramps and ability to digest carbohydrates later on. And I was of course drinking a lot of water because of the heat, but even more so because I was desperately trying to get my blood a little bit more liquid, a little bit more fluid, with my blood sugar level being around 300. At least that's what the CGM was pointing at. Probably it was as thick as maple syrup, honey. So my blood was not even reaching the muscles. I could not really produce force through my running. So all I could do was really drink water and embrace the terrible situation that I was in. Trying to not get into my head too much because it could have been a really dark place, and then just proceeding at an aerobic intensity that would not add stress to my system, which was already under massive stress due to the hyperglycemia. So I was like, okay, I can modify my pace in a way that allows my body to, at least in part, restore itself, right, as I'm into this. Retiring, giving up was not an option. And so I was like, okay, I will get to the end of this, and I will just do my best. I did not have any backup insulin, because I forgot to mention I left. So my last pen of rapid insulin was with me before the start, but I completely finished the amount that was there, and the replacement was back in the hotel room. I forgot it. that was incredible, like almost comical on a day like this, but I forgot it in the hotel room. All I had was the pen of basal insulin, which I gave to one of my friends that I would find at around kilometer 30. And so when I saw them, I was like, okay, at least give me this. I will put it in my race bag, and I don't know if it makes sense, I will use it at some point. But it's basal insulin, so it's not that it's going to make any massive difference. So I took the insulin in the first half around kilometer 35, and then I just went on to kilometer 50. At this point, when I reached the half, I was like, okay, I reached the half, so I know that it's doable at least. But my stomach was still upside down. I I had barely eaten like 2 or 3 gels, actually 2 gels, and then only rinsing my mouth with Coca-Cola or something sugary, bread and jam, just for the placebo effect of giving something sweet, uh, to trick my brain into thinking that there were carbs in the system when in fact there were not. So that's all I had essentially, except for from water. And when I reached the 50K, I was like so mentally beaten that I kind of, for a moment, I was like, okay, screw this. Not only am I going to have coffee, which usually produces some gut issues, but in this case, I was like, at least if it's something in my gut has to happen, I want coffee to just free me of that burden. And so I drank coffee. Nothing happened because I had almost nothing in my belly, to be fair. But it settled my stomach. For some reason, my stomach was just okay from that point in the race on. And then also the volunteers were preparing pasta, were cooking pasta at kilometer 50. So you can see here, I had a bowl of pasta. I asked them to put extra olive oil on it, so there was like some pasta in that oil, if this was a meme. And I also added 1 full spoon of salt. So this is not clearly the pasta that you would eat on any normal day. But at this point, I was such in a massive calorie deficit that I only needed calories, not even carbs, because the intensity of my running was not that high that I was burning through my glycogen stores. I needed calories, and oils were the only type of calories that would power my system in some way without spiking blood sugars, at least in the immediate term. So I was like, okay, just throw some oil and let me enjoy the oil with the salt and a couple of bites of pasta, just for the to boost my morale. And let me tell you, this really made my day or night, because at that point we were like around midnight probably. And from that point on, it was all downhill. But it was also the night. We were running through the night. I forgot my headlamp, so I had to rely. This race was just like irony. So yeah, to add insult to injury, I forgot my headlamp. I already forgot my insulin. I was cramping with the stomach, hyperglycemia. After this, surviving this, I feel unbeatable, to be honest. And so when I started running again, I was relieved because my stomach at least was cooperating, and I could run well. To be honest, I had also spent less energy through the first half, so I was more. I would not say fresh because it was still running through the night, but I felt like confident in what my body was doing. I was only super tired, so all I did was getting caffeine at every aid station. So every 5 kilometers, I would get a cup of coffee, rinse my mouth with some Coca-Cola, chew something like a piece of bread, and then just move on. I would alternate running with some walking intervals, so like taking one stop sign or one sign on the road as my reference point, and saying, okay, from this point to the next sign on the road, I'm going to run, and then I will walk for a bit. And so alternating this, so at least the every kilometer would not become endless, because that was also part of the game. I could have walked the whole thing, but it would have been like the infinite, just infinite. And I just, all I wanted was reaching the end, get to the hotel room and get some insulin into my system. That's all I wanted, really. So to be fair, my blood sugars were just fluctuating between 280 and then 200 and then eating like 1 gram of carbs and then going back to 270 again. So at this point, and for the last 40 kilometers, trust me, I almost ignore my CGM. It sounds crazy because I would never in a marathon just run it completely blind to my blood sugars. But at this point, I just knew that they were so like out of this world that didn't even make sense to attend, to them and to care too much about them. I just needed to avoid too much sugar, to avoid DKA, diabetes ketoacidosis, and just drink water and stay refreshed and stay calm. So I found my pace, and slowly I marched towards the finish line at dawn. This picture was at 5 a.m., 14 hours into the race. I was just running on pure caffeine and, at peace with what had happened. But I was seeing the finish line at least, so that was encouraging. I was just focused on getting to the end. And when I arrived at 6 a.m., all I did was, taking a picture. I was not faking the smile. I was happy. I was happy because I had found a way to manage a very tough situation. But then I immediately went to the bar because, I arrived by the time that the bars in the main square were opening. So, why not? And I ordered something with like soy milk, so at least to get some protein right away, because I still had no insulin with me, but I needed recovery calories. So some unsweetened soy milk, I just chugged it, and liquid calories, but they were all I needed. And then I just arrived in the hotel room in the next 20 minutes, had my insulin shot, like a 20 minutes power nap, and then I during the nap my blood sugars came down to range, and then I went for breakfast and my day went on. So my blood sugars have been quite stable since, so my levels have stabilized and I was in range for the vast majority of this week. I believe 80% if we exclude 85% if we exclude the almost 17 hours of massive hyperglycemia that happened during this race. It was fun. It could have been funnier. I'm going to do this again next year for sure, because I don't want this to be my only experience with 100Ks. And especially, I really want to master my diabetes, and I need to be able to master my diabetes in situations like this. I'm going to write another article with some deeper lessons and maybe having a deeper look and more insights into, my blood sugar patterns, and also a couple of things that I'm planning to do moving forward. I'm already considering introducing an insulin pump, because an episode like this really revealed me the importance of an insulin pump. But this is going to be for next week. So read the article if you want. It's good fun, kind of. And thanks for listening, and let me know. Of course, if you have questions, go on my Substack and leave a comment, or leave it in the comments below here on YouTube. And thanks for listening, and see you next time. Bye bye.